Good afternoon, everyone. It's Lianne Bridges here, and it's Friday afternoon here in this part of the world. And I just wanted to reach out to you to have a discussion about a topic that's been bantered around quite a bit over the last, I would say anyways, few months. It's called the Great Resignation. And I don't know if you've heard of it before, but in this Facebook Live, I'm going to talk about what is the Great Resignation, why is it happening, what are some of the causes of it, and also what the opportunity within this Great Resignation is for both workers, people who are maybe thinking about changing their work in some way, and also employers, because this is becoming a big challenge for employers. So why don't I start there? As I work with my corporate clients, and I should ask if you have any questions or comments along the way, I'd be happy to answer them. So just kind of hope you can, if you're watching this live or you're watching it later, wind down, relax into, and hopefully have a good discussion about a really timely topic, the Great Resignation. So, and hi Carolina, nice to see you here. And thanks so much for tuning in. So the Great Resignation is a term that has been coined recently about a massive shift in the workforce that's happened. Before I get going further, I have to plug myself in because I'm about to lose battery. So let me just do that before I lose you guys. Couldn't be more awkward. Hold on a second. There we go. Yay! Okay, I have power. Sorry about that. Yeah, so in 2021, there's been a lot of research, but what I hear a lot is people talking about labor shortage. They're also talking about supply shortages, and often they're connected because if you don't have enough drivers, to drive products and materials from one place to another, that causes a problem. If you don't have people working on the lines in factories, that causes a supply shortage. If, we don't have, in our service industry, we don't have people working in restaurants and so forth, they can't work at full capacity. And so the Great Resignation is this idea that a lot of people have decided voluntarily to leave their jobs. Hi, Tatiana, nice to see you here. Thanks for joining in. So there's research. I did actually a blog post. If you want to learn more about it, I'll put the link to it here. There's a lot of stats and research about it. But, and I also did an email. If you're not on my email, you'll see a lot more information. But I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit about it. So there's a Microsoft survey that said 41% of employees in the United States were considering shifting their jobs. And that was in 2021. That compares to only 15% in a normal year. That's a big, big jump. There's other research that shows something like almost 4 million people left their jobs in the United States last year. That's the highest ever recorded. And what we're finding is most of them are in the age range of 30 to 45. So people who are really very much at the peak of their career, or close to, reaching their peak or the prime of their working life. And the greatest resignation really happened in 2020 and 2021. And another research out of Canada, and I've seen this research many, many places, is that a full third of the work population in the world are unengaged, unhappy with their current working circumstance. So that's not really very sustainable, right? And what I find as I help clients figure out what their passion is, where they really thrive, is when people can become more aligned with their passion and purpose, they will be a lot happier in their work, and they'll stay in their work and they'll perform at a higher level. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So let's talk about some of the causes of the Great Resignation. Well, There's, different things. You might have heard that people will say, well, with all of the bailouts and all of the government handouts or whatever you want to call them in different countries, that's caused people not to want to go back to work. Maybe in some ways, and maybe in other ways too, they don't want to go back to the way that they were working before. It wasn't sustainable for their health, their mental health, and so forth. And what we had found way before the pandemic is that there was about between 50 and 60% across all industries that 50 to 60% of people would be in burnout at some point in their career. Now, how can you actually have half the population in burnout? It's just not possible to sustain that. So something had to give. And then when you put the pandemic on this, of course, also with people working from home, having to change dramatically that the way they work, they start to think, maybe they had a little bit better balance because they weren't commuting as far and as long and had a little bit more time at home. And they started realizing, I want to do something different. Now, this is coming across all, strata, different socioeconomic and so forth. But obviously, it's a little bit easier for people who have a little bit of savings that they can actually decide to make a move. And we're finding that, like people who also, people who are afraid to go back into the office because of, being at home and a fear of disease and so forth. Also people who have decided not to get vaccinated and they can't continue because their jobs were mandated. All these things have contributed to people being pushed out or voluntarily leaving and really deciding that they want to do something different. Always when we have a pause, even when it's kind of feel like it's foisted on us, is that it often gives us an opportunity to really rethink what we want. And so, hence there's an opportunity in that. It's really, really scary. But, if we look at pre-pandemic, the level of unhealthiness in the workplace, actually, I think there was a research that showed that it was that work itself was one of the leading causes of death and, causing stress and heart attacks and depression and so many different things. And this is what happens when we're not aligned with what we're meant to do and loving what we do and feeling like we're contributing and working in a kind of psychologically safe environment where it doesn't feel toxic and people are really valuing what you bring to the table. So, I do my own little research from time to time with my clients, and I found that most of my clients who are looking at making a shift, so they may be people who are entering the workforce for the first time or re-entering maybe after staying home with kids, or they're in the midlife trying to figure out how to get more balance, or they're looking at really shifting something to express their gifts more, whatever it might be, that they, or maybe even into closer to retirement, they're looking primarily for something that ignites them. So these are some of the causes, I think, of the Great Resignation. Is there may be some immediate causes like having to stay home, getting money to stay home, and the things I said before. But there's a deeper, I think, below that has been working for quite some time. And this is what I've been seeing doing the work that I have for the last more than a decade. So, the most common thing that people say to me and why they begin to do the work to try to figure out where they want to go is they want to create or refocus a career that's really more ignites them. Something that's more exciting, more feels like they're passionate about. So many people just feel kind of ho-hum in their work. And so at the end of this week of Friday, how do you feel when you look back at your week? Do you might feel tired, but maybe more tired after an exhilarating walk or run? Or do you feel tired, exhausted, unmotivated? The other thing is that people want to find a deeper calling. They want to find something that brings more meaning. They believe they want to be part of something greater. And maybe they started out in their career that way, but over time, like I see this so often with people in the medical profession, legal profession, and so forth. They had this great ideals of what they want, and even in business, and then they got just kind of ground down by the systems, and they're no longer feeling like they're really contributing the way that they wanted to. Another reason why people want to shift, and this again is even being exacerbated, is the whole need for more prosperity, more, like, people will think maybe more income, but it's much broader than just strictly income. It's abundance and prosperity. So it's not like really working hard to get, $5,000 more dollars. It's like, what other benefits, what other ways I can work, and so forth, so that I have greater abundance in my life. And sometimes that means working in a job, but also having something on the side, what people sometimes call passive income, which I don't like that term, because nothing's ever really passive, I don't believe. But, something where abundance comes a lot easier. And especially right now, because of inflation, this is going to become a bigger and bigger issue, because we're seeing the cost of almost everything we buy, from housing to toilet paper to food and to gas, going up, but we don't see the wages going up. And then once the wages go up, the other things are going to go up as well. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle. So we actually have to find ways that are living a little bit more simply, less materialistically, but really abundant in joy and experiences, and being able to, be healthy, feed ourselves, those kind of things. That's one of the big things that I'm hearing from people. Also, again, this has been around for a long time, is better balance. So some people absolutely love their work, but they're just working 60, 70, 80 hours. They don't have time for their selves, their family, anyone else. So they really need to make that change. And as I mentioned earlier, is like a lot of people are thinking about retirement from a different way. They're thinking that, I can't keep up this pace. I know when I hit 50, it was like, actually probably 46. I was a little younger than some people, to kind of refire rather than retire. And I didn't have the finances to just leave my job, but I really wanted to completely do my work in a different way. It's a way that had more flexibility for me, that was I am more passionate about, working how I want, when I want. And that's what more and more people are looking for. And to do it beyond your traditional retirement years is really important, because when we stay connected in our work, even if we're working, say 5 or 10 hours a week, doing what we love in our 70s or even into our 80s, it keeps us, and there's so much research on this now, it keeps us younger, healthier, and we actually live longer. So, and it's a part of our legacy. We leave behind some of our knowledge and our abilities to the next generation. So these are some of the big reasons why people are thinking about shifting their jobs, shifting the way that they want to work. Of course, a more traditional one is they want to just up-level their work. So they may be in a lower level position, they want to get to the next level, or they want to expand and try, I'm in sales and I want to try marketing, or I want to try food service, or whatever it might be, that they want to try something different. And so they want change. And the last one, but not least, but it is actually usually a priority, what people think about, but actually deep down, this is really often what they're really calling for, is they want to be able to express their strengths, their unique talents and gifts, and their creativity in a greater way. They often don't think this, but when they actually go down to it, when I ask people about what they're passionate about, what brings meaning to them, what they're good at, it all gets them energized. And those are their talents and their creativity starting to come out. And if you can imagine at least spending a half an hour or an hour a day really focused on your talents and your gifts and creativity, imagine what that would be like. And imagine if it was like that for your whole day. This is the way that I work now. It's my whole day is in that zone. Okay, a couple of times, here I have to do my accounting, which is not my thrive zone, but for the vast majority of my day is in this zone. It doesn't mean I don't get tired because I'm working a lot, but it's just, it does energize me quite a bit. So I think that these are all the reasons behind the reasons, if you will. So the reasons that I mentioned before that you kind of hear in the research, but the real reasons are these deeper, people looking for passion, more purpose, something that ignites them, connection, looking for something that helps them live more authentically, more abundance, express themselves in a way that reflects their talents and their creativity. So I'm not sure if you guys have any questions, but I'd love to hear them. And I'm really excited that you guys are on here and listening. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is like, what are the things that get in our way of actually living our passion and our purpose? And again, I, research and do often talk to my customers and get them to fill out polls and stuff like that. So the biggest challenges that I hear, and you may have thought yourself, yeah, I'd like to do something different. But number one, I'm not sure what direction to go. I'm really confused. I don't know, my friend says this, my husband says this, I think I'm this, but I have I'm not sure what direction I should go. That's something that stops people quite a bit. For sure, one of the most important is people worried about finances. I can't just leave my job or my current position and do whatever I want. Some people can, and it is possible, but it is sometimes a harder route. There's ways to do it kind of like, creating a side gig that, something that you build for you just to keep as a side gig, for you to move into at some point. As a full-time career or as a retirement type of thing that you want to do afterwards. And the best time to do that is now because putting that off, it takes longer and longer to actually get a side gig started. And a lot of people say they don't have the energy to do it because they're working so much, right? So they don't have the time to put into a side gig. But I guarantee you, if it's something you're passionate about and is right on to your purpose and your thrive zone, then what it will do is actually the opposite. It'll give you more time. That sounds weird. Like, how can I spend 10 hours a week working on this when I'm already working 40 hours a week on my work job? Well, you just picture like anyone, the guy who loves to tinker on cars in the garage, or the person who loves to garden, whatever. The time flies by. It's something that you're really passionate about, and it actually it's good for your health and well-being, and gives you energy. So it's the same thing when you're working on some sort of side thing that you really like, whether it's something, it doesn't have to be volunteer. It could be something you get paid for, but with the idea of something you're building, it's not just a one-off thing. That's where you really start to get some energy, because you can see the potential, and it helps you to be like this, where you can't really see where you're going to go. Like the first thing I said, I'm not sure which way I want to go. In doing that side gig, you're trying different things. You're seeing what works, what doesn't work. One of the things that stop people so often is they feel they don't have enough education, they don't have enough training in something, or they don't have some sort of certification or degree or whatever. And that is absolutely false. We start where we are, and we use the experience, the talents, and the training that we have right now, and we build there. And then if we need more, we go out and we get more. But so often this is just used unconsciously as an excuse to procrastinate and then never get us off the ground. The other thing I hear a lot is that people will say, I might choose the wrong thing. And, again, we never really can choose the wrong thing. You might have been in a career for 20 years and you decide now you want to do something different. Does that mean you chose the wrong thing 20 years ago? Maybe, maybe not. But if we look at it that way, it's just, you leave yourself with regret rather than saying, I'd rather look at it like, this is all, I've learned so much from that. It served me in many different ways, and now I'm ready to do something else. And even if that something else is for a month, it will teach you something. It'll be a step on something else. So it's really important that we work through that. So the other thing too I hear a lot is I have lots and lots of ideas, or I have a really good idea, but I don't know how to put it together. Once I start to think that, I get overwhelmed. Well, with career development, starting maybe a side gig or a business, or building a business, anything where you want to shift your work requires a step-by-step method. And if you don't know that step-by-step method, it's really hard. How do you know what comes first, what comes second? You kind of look outside and you go, oh, that person's doing this, so I should do that. Oh, that person's doing that. You don't know how it goes. So it's really important that you get some proper guidance to teach you, to show you the way. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be expensive. But it's really, really a good investment for you to know, because you could be spinning your wheels. You could end up giving up because you think step 1 is first and step 2, when really step 10 was the first thing you needed to do. And so that's one of the things, if you stayed till the end, I'll give you a little bit more information, because I have great, amazing programs where I've taken people right through all the steps, and each step builds on the other, slowly progressing to help you to get that clarity and then to start to manifest. It's really important that you don't do it completely on your own. I just hear clients all the time, I'm overwhelmed and I give up. And then, 6 months later, they're like, oh, I want to do that thing, right? So the other thing that may not be as obvious that I hear quite a bit is people will say, I'm worried, or they may not even say it, but it's deep in their thought process when I dig. And it's that my life might change too much, so people around me might think I'm weird. They might not approve of it. My mother, my father, my husband, my wife, my kids, my close friends. Often when we change, our circles change quite a bit too, even when it comes to our work. And when we stop ourselves from expressing our greatness because of that fear, then we stay small and we stay in a life that's, not lived fully, and we do end up with regrets. There's an amazing nurse, a palliative care nurse who did research, Bonnie Ware, and she talked to 800 people at the end of their life and asked them what their biggest regret was. And so she wrote the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret of people dying was they didn't live the life, they didn't have the courage to live the life they knew they were meant to live. And courage means really to change requires courage. It doesn't require confidence. Confidence is not what it's about. It's courage and bravery. So when you're afraid to do it anyways, when you fear change, when you're in your comfort zone and you don't want to get out, but you push yourself, that's commitment, bravery, grit. That's what's required in order for us to make that shift. Or otherwise we're going to stay in the same old and be in the burnout stage and get to the point where maybe we resign or are resigned because we're not performing it the way we should be, because we're not ignited anymore. And then it's a lot harder for us. So it's better for us to move ourselves in that direction. And, another one I hear quite often is, I don't know how to use my skills or put them together in such a way, and my learning, my talents and all that, I don't know how to put that all together. Again, it really requires a step-by-step to be able to analyze and to be able to look at where your strengths are, to be able to overcome some of the challenges, and then to be able to identify who is it that you're here and what is your unique contribution, and put a plan in place. And the last one is that sometimes people feel kind of alone. They don't know where to turn. They don't know if I need support, what kind of support, who can support me in this, right? So that's really important, that you find the right guidance, the right person that you feel that you can jive with, that you can feel like you have a connection with. They are on the same kind of frequency, they are not way out here, looking at, yes, you got to make tons of money and you're not there. Or they're like, hey, chill, man, doesn't matter, money doesn't care. And you're maybe not like that. It's like finding that right person who you really feel you can trust and you feel confident in their abilities. So, talked a little bit about what is the Great Resignation, some of the causes and the deeper causes, and then what stops us kind of from moving forward. So now I want to talk about kind of the answer, what I believe is the answer to the Great Resignation, the answer to helping you if you would like to shift, or to your employees who, if you're an employer, to help them to be in a better place so that they feel more engaged, that they perform at a higher level, that the ones who are meant to stay, and the ones who are not, leave. Because one of the things I often hear is that when I go into companies, they're like, well, what if some of my employees leave after working with you, Lianne? I'm like, well, that's probably a good thing, because they were not in the right position. And would you really like to keep the wrong person in a position for a long period of time? Or would you rather them go to what they're needed, where they're needed, and bring a person in that's more aligned? And I've had, all sorts of different experiences with employers where some people will end up having, deciding to leave, and then that makes room for another person who is just perfect for their job within the company. I've also had experience where someone left and then they came back, but they came back and they created a different position for them. There's so many different options, but trying to hold someone in a position that they're not right for a long period of time is just a recipe for disaster. So the idea is really helping them to find that, what they're best at. So my kind of key to helping individuals, workers, employees, or employers helping their workers and employees is what I call self-leadership. And that's the idea of, for us, really working with intention on our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our attitudes, our patterns, our how we speak, our actions. When we work on all of that and our reactions, then we are in a much stronger place to be able to calm ourselves in a difficult situation, to get clarity of who we are, to do the self-discovery of what we're all about, to master, to learn. It really is this idea that it starts from within. And so often we think it's the opposite. If only I had that job that was perfect for me, or if only, my boss was this way, or if only my employee was this way. And yet if we really, be the change kind of idea, if we start to live what we are trying to vision for ourselves or for our team, then we can actually shift dramatically how the direction of the team or the direction of our work or the direction of our life. So I call this kind of cultivating the inner leadership or self-leadership. And I really believe that that is going to be a revolution in the coming years that's going to really help with the Great Resignation. And it's not just for executives. I believe it for people at all levels, whether you're working on the front line with customers or in the plants, assembly lines, whatever, or you're in the C-suite directing the vision of the organization. The more that, and it doesn't have to be a top-down where everybody kind of follows suit. You can have somebody at the mailroom who is more self-aware and more leading from within, compassionate, kind, aware of themselves. They create this ripple effect in the mailroom and then out to the people that they touch. And then people are like, oh, who is that person? And, of course, they perform better because they're loving what they do. They love connecting with people. They're more aligned with the type of work they're meant to do. And then they create a ripple effect. And then, other people start to see and they get maybe influenced by that person. Maybe I need to be more like that. And then so on, it goes like that. So it really starts from within. We can't wait for somebody else to do it for us. So what I wanted to talk to you about is some of the principles of self-leadership. I'm just about finished, and I'm gonna go into more detail in more videos about self-leadership. But if you can imagine that when we are living our passion, creatively expressing our unique gifts, and we are kind of ever learning, ever evolving, improving, and that we're energized to go to work and to take a vision for the future. Can you imagine what that means to be kind of living our potential and really being key in being able to contribute to our organization, to our work, to our communities, to our families? That's really the key of self-leadership. And there's three principles that I really believe are the core of self-leadership, of leading from within, leading to be your best self from the inside out. And that first one is awareness. Being aware, awareness of our thoughts, our emotions, all the things I mentioned before, our actions, our reactions, how other people react to us, and learning and evolving, trying to be that better self, being able to work through the reactions that don't really serve us anymore and replacing them with ones that really do, to help us to be the best in any situation. That really takes awareness. We hear a lot about kind of mindfulness, and mindfulness is just a part of awareness. It helps us to be centered, to listen to our thoughts, and our, we start by listening to our breath, try to remove our thoughts, that kind of thing, being very mindful of the space we're in, the present moment, not lost in the past or worried about the future. But awareness is much broader than that. It's really looking beyond that one moment and to really understand who we are and understand our limiting beliefs, understand where they come from, understand how we can start to shift them when we know that boss that we have that drives us crazy is really something in us that we need to fix. And so I was like, what is that about? Well, imagine often when I'll ask somebody in my companies, it's like I'll say, that boss that's driving you crazy, who does it remind you of in your day-to-day life? And I go, oh, alive or have passed away. Oh, that was my father. He was just like that. Or that was my spouse I have the same problem with. So we attract the same kind of challenges in our life because we need to learn those lessons. So this is a part of awareness, is to really be able to understand who we are and be able to work on, always be working on to better ourselves, so that we can stop blaming others, our boss, for the problem, not condone necessarily the way they work, but when we heal ourselves, those problems tend to go away. The boss ends up being shifted off to another department, or, whatever it might be. Your spouse starts to react to you in a different way, or maybe you end up deciding you have to move on from a certain relationship, whatever that could be. That's the part of awareness that's really, really key in self-leadership. The second part of self-awareness, which really helps with this great resignation and all the root problems of why people are leaving and shifting again in their work, is intention. So intention for me is, okay, now I have a little greater awareness and what things are not working for me and how I want to work on. Now I need to create a clear view of where I want to go. And how do I do that? And as I mentioned before, so many people are saying, I don't know what direction, that's what stops me. Well, this is where I started my work over 10 years ago, is trying to help people understand what their thrive zone is. And the thrive zone is that place where you understand where your passion, your purpose, your unique expertise and training you've got, your own personal journey from your life, your archetype, which is kind of like your personality in your work, and your work style, the way you naturally work and feel comfortable working, your unique talents that you're born with, that you've kind of grown and evolved with over the years, and your unique way of being creative. Those are like 8 kind of defining components for you. And when you can understand all those 8, it helps you to be able to look at them in whole and see your kind of beautiful blueprint for your work and what you should be doing. And when you marry that with the who, that is the people that are really your Thrive tribe, I call them. So it's the type of your ideal customers, your ideal kind of partners and collaborators, and the influencers and peers and competitors, even competitor circle and industry within you work within. When you can identify them and you can marry that with your Thrive Zone, that's when you can create your why, your vision of kind of why you're here and how you'd like to design your life and your work. And from there you can create your mission, how you're going to do that, and your approach, the best way to do that. All of that together helps you to really create your intention with clarity. And so you've got awareness, now you have intention, and the third part is mastery. So once you have that vision, you have to actually create a plan, steps. And to create a plan, you really need to figure out where you are and where you want to go. So, the gap between your vision and where you are now is really that place where you need to do the work. You need to put strategies, you need to do some things, learn, build, whatever you might do in order to get to that vision. And so you put that plan, and then there's some things you may need to develop and learn along the way. It could be basic skills to help you master. It could be more soft skills like listening, or cultivating your creativity. You might be really focusing on being able to commit because you have a hard time. It could be whatever those things are that you'll become more of a master in your life, more master in manifesting your vision, and also being able to sustain it. So those are the 3, what I call the AIM principles: A for awareness, I for intention, and M for mastery and self-leadership. And like I said, I really believe that self-leadership is really the thing that we can control. This is, being self-responsible, recognizing that what happens in the outer world actually is a reflection of what's happening in our inner world. And when we can start to recognize that, it will set us free. A lot of times people will go, it's a lot of responsibility. I take, responsibility for this. Again, it's not condoning others or things that are happening in the world. It's more saying, this is where I'm at, and what's appearing in my reality is part of what I've created. And how do I create rather than miscreate? Miscreating is unconsciously creating things we don't want, but more creating from awareness, intention, and mastery. So I actually have a workshop coming up I call it part of the Human Potential Network, and it's going on cultivating self-responsibility. And that's coming up at the 29th of March. So in a couple of weeks, if you want to join in, I'll put the link there. And also have a course called a longer program. So well, first one I mentioned is just a workshop. And the course I'm running is a 12-week course called WorkLife Reboot, or Reboot Your Work Life. And it's really to help you go through all of these steps to figure out in more detail the awareness and what may be stopping and what are the things you can leverage to really understand your thrive zone and create a vision and a mission and a plan to get you to where you want to go. And this is something I've been doing for years. I've got amazing results with clients, and they just love it. The transformation that they've had. I've had people say to me, most people will say, I have to admit that it's hard, because if you think going into changing something is going to be easy or just moving, then that's usually a recipe for failure. If you recognize it's going to be uncomfortable at times and you're going to have to push yourself through, then you're probably going to be a lot more successful. And so one client recently, a corporate client, was saying to me, she was had this course as part of her corporate kind of initiative, and she was kind of like resisting going to the classes and doing the work. And she said it was different course than anything she's ever done, and she was a VP in operations of a big company and done tons and tons of training. She said this was different than anything. It really took me out of my comfort zone, but it was the most rewarding. It really shifted every part of my life. And that's one of the things we don't realize. When we do this inner leadership work, it shifts everything. It doesn't just shift the leadership, who you are. It doesn't just shift your work. It doesn't just shift your life or your relationships. It shifts everything, because it shifts who you are and how you see the world and how you see yourself. And so that's super, super valuable. So I'm going to be doing a few more lives where I go Facebook lives, where I go into the awareness level a little bit more detail. I go into the intention and mastery. But in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me, I have the Human Potential Network that I'd love you to join. You get lots of resources. We have monthly workshops. Super, super inexpensive. It's $19 a month or $89 for 6 months. You can try 1 month free and just check it out and see, and come to the workshop on the 29th. And if you're interested, you can go a little bit further and you'd like to learn more about the Work-Life Reboot, you give me a call. I'd love to do a 30-minute free consultation, see if it's right for you. Usually run those courses a couple of times in like one in January, one now, but I won't be running another one until the fall. So if it's something that's really calling to you, want to start to make a change, I'd really look into it right now for you, because by the fall you could be completely shifting your life in a massive way. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you in any way, and just have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Hope the weather's good for you where you're at. Namaste.